In October 2010, Channel Enabler's CEO Braham Shnider joined Channel Services Group's VP of Sales Joby Pearson in a webinar about optimising partner coverage and recruiting the right partners. They share proven best practices and insights to help vendors build a dedicated sales force in their channel partner program.
Today we'll be focusing on the segment to help you optimize your partner coverage. By the end of this webinar, you'll be able to determine the appropriate level of partner coverage, how to determine the right coverage, the tools and resources that are required to manage the partner coverage, and how to track results and use data to make actionable business decisions. Now let's move ahead to meet the two channel experts who will be conducting this webinar today. First and foremost, we have Braham Shnider, who's the President and CEO of Channel Enablers. Braham began Channel Enablers in 1999 and is the founder and president. Braham has over 20 years of sales and marketing experience with technology companies and has held executive roles in all levels of the IT industry. Braham has extensive experience in developing channels to market strategies and has worked in over 30 countries. Braham specializes in channel and alliance strategy consulting and operational reviews. He has facilitated many leadership, strategy, and planning workshops for high-tech vendors, and is a regular keynote speaker on channels and alliances best practices, and runs channels and alliance management workshops globally. Some of the clients that he's personally assisted include Cisco, EMC, HP, IBM, Oracle, Nokia, Sun Microsystems, SAP, and Symantec. Joby Pearson, who is the Vice President of Sales for Channel Services Group, will also be joining us. Joby has over 22 years of experience solution selling in small business to enterprise business size accounts, has over 10 years in business process outsourcing, and 17 years in sales management. His team of business development managers and program strategists develop and deliver marketing campaigns designed to increase revenue and product awareness within reseller and distribution channels for technology companies. In the past 10 years, Joby has helped design and execute partner sales programs, go-to-market campaigns, and launch marketing initiatives for the world's largest technology companies. Now, because there are a large number of people on the call today, we are telling everyone that it's a one-way audio broadcast. We are able to take your questions and comments through chat. For those of you who are new to the live meeting system and want to ask a question or a comment, simply click on the chat box on the top right of your screen and type in your question there. At the end of the webinar, we'll have time for questions and answers, and we'll work through as many questions posted as possible. And now I would like to hand off this part to Braham to begin the educational webinar, Optimizing Your Partner Coverage. Take it away, Braham.
Thank you very much, Tina, and good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the inaugural webinar series we've done between ourselves and CSG. And I'm pleased to see there are a lot of familiar names and some new names on the call today. So we know that approximately 80% of indirect revenues come from probably the top 20% of partners within a vendor community. In fact, I was only at a vendor only last week, and they were telling me that it's closer to 90% of their revenues come from the top 10% of their partners. Now we know, therefore, that would infer that 80 or 90% of partners are neither productive nor is it profitable for either party. But this is not the case in almost every other mature industry. Have you ever heard of a car manufacturer saying that 60% of their dealer network is not productive? Even through the GFC, you weren't hearing that. Or, they're a drain on their resources. Have you heard of a medical equipment manufacturer saying that 60% of their distributors aren't profitable, or a pharmaceutical company saying something similar about their agents in the field? The answer is you don't. So why is this specifically in high-tech? Why do we see such a high percentage of partners not being profitable or being unproductive? And I think there are really 4 reasons for that. One is you either have too much or too little customer coverage by your partners. Too much coverage against a specific market opportunity means margin erosion and conflict and for all parties involved, and too little means missed sales targets. The second reason is you may recruit too many of the wrong partners. It's much easier to say yes to a partner who shows some interest or has a deal rather than going through the partners that you really need in the marketplace. And so therefore a lot of partners are collected along the way. The third reason is your partner investment proposition is weak. compared to your competitors. And so you're not driving investment in your brand or in your products. And finally, you don't have, and I think this is a big part of it, you don't have the processes, the data or discipline in how you review your partners. And it's easier just to do nothing and hope that those partners, that long tail of partners that you have, will continue to be productive. So as a consequence of that, CSG and channel enablers have decided to come up with a webinar series. And so today we're very much covering the channel coverage topic, and we're going to talk more extensively about that in a moment, but we're also going to run 2 other webinars. And Joby, do you want to just cover what we're going to cover in those 2 webinars?
Yeah, thanks, Braham. We'll be covering the discipline to recruiting the right partners, and that one will be held on Tuesday, November 16th. We'll cover things to look out for in your recruiting process and some recruiting best practices. The next webinar will be Telling Partner Investment Propositions on December 7th, and that will be covering how to develop a strong partner investment story.
Okay, thanks, Joby. So if you're talking about coverage, it all has to, before you can think of coverage, you've got to have some clarity around the segmentation, the segments that you want to go after. You know, which customer segments are going to offer the greatest opportunity for growth. So what I'd like to do very quickly is do a bit of a segmentation primer before we can really move on to the topic of coverage. So when we're talking about a customer segment, we're talking about a group of end-user customers who have a common application need, who reference each other when making their buying decisions, so however they may reference each other, and have the same requirements for solution availability and delivery. So a simple example, retail and internet banking. They have the same end user customers, they have the same application needs, so it's a retail banking or internet banking system. They certainly reference each other, whether it be in their clubs or their industry analysts and things like that when making their buying decisions. And certainly they have the same solutions requirements, for availability around 24/7 and the ability to handle significant loads at certain times. So that's the example of a customer segment. So if your company does not have target markets clarified, your segmentation is not clear, then your channel program can never be optimized. And technically you can't have a coverage strategy because you don't know where you want to have your coverage to. And then within a market segment, not all opportunities should be treated equal. And so you've got to try and identify which, I call them the hot spots in the market. Where's the growth going to come from? Where are you going to need particularly incremental coverage over and above what you have today? And so to identify, or as we continue this quick primer on market segmentation, customer segmentation, I think there are 4 screens that you need to be able to go through to identify who are or what is these hotspots in the market, where are they, and then we'll talk a bit about in a moment about sizing. So the first screen is where do you have some sort of technological advantage over your competitors, specifically to that segment that you're going after. Where do you have an economic benefit, whether it be a pricing or an ROI type benefit. You don't want to target segments that are going to make decisions in the time frame that's important to you. So that might be fiscal year 2011. So you've got to have a timing. So you're going to have certain segments that be more laggards than others. And then finally, particularly if you want to go through an indirect sales channel, you've got to understand exactly what the justification or elevator pitch is. In other words, how, in a sentence or two, why would a customer want to buy from within that segment? Because you need to be able to build your demand gen around that, particularly if you're very tertiary in product or commoditized. You've got to have clarity around how you're, or you're going to have clarity for your channel partners to gain their interest, and clearly you've got to have something that's very succinct to a customer. So once you go through these 4 segments, what you're really left with is what I call high potential segments, or your hotspots in the market. Here's some examples. And it could be anything from customer size is one way that you can segment, and that can be by employees or revenue. A lot of the PC manufacturers, for example, would use price band. Telephone manufacturers, mobile manufacturers would use price band. Application driven is very common. Probably the most common is industry verticals that we see sort of across the right there, but it could also be geographic, particularly in emerging countries where you hear about tier 1 cities and tier 2 cities and 3 and 4 and so on. Looking at from an install base or new user perspective, replacement cycle, and a whole range of others. The point I'd like to make here is that you need to decide how best to do your segmentation, because your segmentation will help you identify where your growth comes from, and only then can you start to build your coverage strategy. And so here's, a simple little bit coverage strategy. You have effectively a market segment that could be anything. Let's just call it banking again, financial services. And it's been broken into 6 subsegments. So you've broken it by enterprise, mid-market, and their smaller banks, and then you break it into install base and new business. And so what you see here is a coverage strategy, not a coverage plan, but a coverage strategy of how you're going to cover each of those different markets. But ultimately, this does not define capacity. So you need a process to define capacity as well. So to define capacity, though, you need to be able to size segments. And so part of the segmentation process involves calculating the economic potential of these particular segments, sizing the segments. So if you can calculate or estimate a number that will help you compare this subsegment to others, then it helps you more clearly identify the areas of greatest potential. In turn, this may help you justify the commitment of your resources, such as marketing funds, or to encourage new partners to come on board, and existing partners in particular to invest, and help them, help to convince them to skill up and develop better solutions and invest in demand generation. If partners don't make money, particularly in these subsegments, they're not going to invest. And if they don't invest, the market opportunity won't be covered by the channel. Remember, you're competing for your partner's mind share and investment. Vendors promote their products and services to resellers as a source of revenue and profit. And so you've got to be able to compete against any other kind of income a partner might produce, such as their own services, different lines of business, or just putting money in their bank. If you help your partners understand where they can make money, it'll also help you differentiate your company and help allow partners to invest to optimize the market opportunity. So the question now is how do you calculate the potential of a subsegment? Actually, there's a number of ways. The traditional approach is to conduct some kind of market survey about future spending plans and using industry analysts and the like. The benefit of this approach is that you can learn a lot. The disadvantage is it takes a long time and it's very expensive. A more common approach is to look at historical spending and apply a justifiable growth factor to that, that allows for changes in the actual size of the market segment and the vendor's market share growth. And without too much expense, it's quite reasonable to estimate the size of potential markets using, what you already know and what you can practically find out and what you believe to be just justifiable to persons for, providing good logic. You might also ask your partners for data. Partners may, be selling competitive solutions and are interested in migrating their installed base to your company. What's the size of their installed base of competitive solution? What's been the technology refresh and average spend? Are the types of questions you might ask. Or if your extended team has some experience in this market, you could simply draw upon your own data and experience to see what this can tell you. Sometimes a quick calculation based on some reasonable assumptions or estimates is enough to tell you that something is worth pursuing. So just what you see here is a very simple tool that has been used by others. So it's been used by our customers. It's a checklist effectively. So we've identified the segments that we want to go after. Now that we've identified the segments, and by each geography in this case, so partners within a geography, do we have partners covering those particular industries that we're interested in? So again, it's not a data-driven this is not a data-driven exercise. This is purely a coverage exercise. So this is almost a step one type activity or activity in trying to define your coverage.